Just checking on what you can see actually. I'm just going to check that you've got that in the right place on your screen before I get going. Yep, that looks good. Fantastic. Okay, so welcome to tonight's session. This is getting set up for success. So this is basically a training from me, giving you sort of an outline of the 4 key areas that I think it's good to focus on first in your furniture upcycling business. And so let's pop on to the content and just run you through that. I've actually slightly sort of rejigged them because actually 2 of the areas were very close together, and so I've just merged them into one. So the contents of this session are going to be talking about branding yourself, getting set up to sell, showing up and share, and working on you. So this is an overview session, and the idea is that I'll touch upon all the different areas, but then we can come back and dig into them in more depth over the coming weeks. Really, there might be things you specifically ask to cover, and I can just do a quick sort of screen share or jump on and do something in one of our weekly sessions, or I can do mini trainings to accompany it. So it might be I'll show you how to edit photos, for example. So this is just the beginning, and it's sort of setting the scene really. It doesn't necessarily cover everything, and I might evolve it over time because this is the first time I've done this specific session. But what I have done is captured everything that I would have liked to have known right at the beginning. If there was somebody to tell me what to focus on first and not to get try to do everything at once, and maybe some things I would know to park. So this is sort of simplified 3 years of figuring things out, I think. The whole industry has come a long way, and you're joining it a really great time, I think, because it's got more and more professional. And so the great thing is you've got people who've gone before you to show you things and to say, actually, don't worry about those things, or and the customers are also more understanding of the product and the value, and but you've also got a more saturated marketplace, so you rely on online more than ever now, and you need to be in front and forward of your business more than ever as well. So that's really kind of what I'm going to start off with some of these elements here. But bearing in mind, this is just my opinions from my experience. So, there might be things that you think, no, actually, I don't agree with that, or I'm going to focus on this for me. And I would wholeheartedly say, yes, just trust your own judgment. I think, it's important to me that you learn to trust your judgment and be confident independently rather than always sort of looking to me for answers. But, obviously I can give you some insights from my own experience. And it's also worth saying that I'm constantly learning all the time as well. Some of these things I'm still working on. You might see when we talk about things like staging your furniture for sale, it's ever evolving process for me with that as well. And I'll touch upon it in the branding side of things as well. I think you're always sort of looking to improve, and it's the same with our techniques in our furniture work as well, I think. So as I said, I'm going to cover these 4 sections. What you'll see is I haven't included anything about creativity or style, which is something that we've kind of touched upon it in conversations and as we've gone along, and that's because I think I don't really see these as checklist items or specific go out and sort this out and set it up items. These are things that evolve as you work and you discover authentically what you're into and what you're good at, and and it might not necessarily be a style, it might be a mood or a feel or a vibe about your work or a certain way you present it. It doesn't have to be out there as a style. It could just be a certain ethos around your work, but I think that comes as you go along. So I think this is good to get you set up, to get you out there, and I think really in some ways I think it's good to have that income coming first, and you can practice on different projects and different things, and then you've got the space to play and learn and sort of experiment and find your style if you haven't already sort of decided what your style is. So with that in mind, I am also planning a creative challenge, which will sort of lead into the new course. But that would be something that I would open it to the group here for you to join in with, in terms of creatively designing, coming up with furniture designs, and sort of coaching through a sort of a process of putting designs together, really. So that's something that we can come on to after this. Anyway, let's crack on. So the first section, branding yourself, and I've split this into 6 individual sections. And so the first one, nail your business name. You might be going, tick, got that, not a problem. 2, check out the availability, which you might have done also, but maybe there's some here that you haven't checked, and you might find that useful. But so there might be some things that you don't need to worry about, but hopefully there'll be, you know, bits and bobs here that will be helpful. 3, set up your accounts. 4, get a logo. 5, decide your message. And then 6, go and personalize. Now, getting clear on your brand is really going to help differentiate you in the industry, in the marketplace right now. It's so, you know, buzzy and saturated, and everybody wants to sort of get involved with it, particularly after this year. I think it's really important to sort of have something that sort of sets you apart. And like I said, it doesn't need to be wacky. It doesn't need to be, you know, something that you have to sort out right now. You don't have to nail it down right now. These things evolve as you get clearer with your own style, and it doesn't have to be perfect right now. I'm going to keep saying it probably as I go through, because I keep thinking it. Done is better than perfect. You can always tweak it. But what we're going to do here is get you off the blocks, get started. You can even change it completely. People rename themselves. People change their branding completely. I'm going through a rebranding right now. I'm not changing the name. Although somebody did suggest to me saying, did you want to do Nikki Cash Designs? I was like, you know, that's a step too far, sort of losing the logo. But you can change those things. So I think you just need to step out there, put something together that can get you started, that looks professional and gives you that sort of that business edge, really. The fact that you're not sort of just sort of winging it, really. You've got a little bit of a sort of cohesive look. Maybe you've got an email address. That just the small things, but that they can actually signify a professional business to customers. So that's what I'm going to say as we go through is like done is better than perfect. So you know, it doesn't need to be you know, sometimes you could sort of sit with something for 6 months and maybe think, yeah, no, that's what I'm going to go for. And often the things we instinctively do, you know, go for without laboring it, and sometimes turn out to be the best decisions because they maybe just kind of, they felt right. So we're going to keep it simple. And what you need to do to get your creations out in the world and get people's attention. Let's just move it on one. So first of all, nailing your business name. So I'd imagine from my little poll that quite a few can feel quite sort of relieved here, because it's not easy trying to decide what to call yourself. But so I've just put a few pointers down here for anybody who is sort of still trying to work it out and is tossing things around. I was trying to find a picture from my my jotter from a couple of years ago, where I was scribbling around and actually Done Up North was the first time I'd written it down, and that's what it often takes. You know, you just let it rumble around in your head and draw things out. It doesn't necessarily need to be descriptive of what you do. But if you do choose something descriptive, I know my name is partly quite descriptive, you know, the done up bit. I think it's really important to be aware that a lot of those names may have already been done. And so this is where I go to step 2, go and check out what is, you know, if you've come up with a brainwave around upcycling or revive, revamp, because revive was one of the names I was going to go for, till I went and had a look and found that there was a business in Leeds, a social enterprise that was taking stuff from waste centres and redoing it. And I thought, well, that's definitely out then. So if you want to do something around that, you've come up with a really, you know, maybe sort of clever name or play on words, something that's tickled your fancy, just check it out. I tend to think that it maybe is a bit done around that area, because are you going to stand out if you're Upcycled Home UK and, you know, upcycling home. You know, there's quite a lot of overlaps between them, and I think I would probably encourage you to go for something a bit more unique and memorable and quirky, even, you know, something that's very specifically you. And you may not tell people where it came from, but that's great because nobody else will have that same name. And I know some of the names in the group already, you know, definitely fit into that mold. But business names can be as simple as your own name. So there's nothing wrong with, you know, I could say Nikki Cash Design Studio if I wanted to. Obviously, you've got to kind of like your name. You've got to kind of you know, want to hear it all the time and be cool with that. And also have a name that's easy for people to pronounce. You know, it's got to flow and be easy enough for people to remember as well and be able to spell, probably, I'd say. But what's a really big area is sentimental or meaningful names. So that could be, you know, animals, your children. There's quite a few people out there using their grandparents' names. You could use it. Some people use sort of street names, or the name of the house, like Ivy Cottage, or whatever. Different things like that. I mean, it's certainly worth thinking about what meaning it projects. If you lived in Ivy Cottage but you're doing mid-century modern, you know, that might be something to think about. But those are memorable, and they're not going to be like anybody else. And so I think have a little think about things like that kind of mean something to you, that's going to stand out a little bit more, and it will be very authentic. And so I've said here to have a look at other accounts to get inspirations for naming formats. Instagram, there's quite a lot of creative account handles on there. If you're stuck for something and you want to be a bit different, you can have a little look at what people are calling themselves, within reason, because, you know, some of them, you know, they're specific and they're not very businessy. But the other thing I'd say is to brainstorm. You know, that's something you could come into the group and ask for help. And I've constantly, in the sort of early days, was in and out of thesaurus.com looking for words and trying to come up with the names of things. And so, yeah, brainstorming, bringing that, you know, ideas in, asking people to throw extra words in or to come back with their opinions can certainly help get you there. But ultimately, I think you need to choose something you like. It doesn't matter what your Uncle Derek thinks of it. I think it needs to be something you like, because your customers will resonate with your style, what you're doing. And I think that's a much better way. Just hoping the dogs don't stop barking. And I think that's how you're going to come up with something pretty authentic, ultimately. Okay. So now checking availability. So as you went through that process, if you didn't have something very personal to you, you might have already had to pop on and do this, because, you know, I got quite wedded to quite a few different names, and then went and checked them and found that they were already taken or something quite close to it. And I just thought, well, it's not really worth it. I'll just think again. So as I say, don't get too attached to it before you've checked it out, because there's some things it's just easier to have the account name straight without any fiddling around for people to find you. So I would say the place that I would go to first is a domain name provider, because we're thinking big here. You know, you're going to have a website, you're going to have, you know, you're going to want people to be able to put in .com and find you, even if you don't start your website for some time. So I would go to something like GoDaddy. That's where I have my domain name, but you might know other ones. Two Cows is one I picked up on today. I think that's the one that Wix uses, and search. And I might be old school, but I'm a firm believer in .co.uk and .com are the things to nail down, because it's still even if there are other what do you call it, suffixes for web addresses, we all still think in those terms. And so if I was trying to find you and I saw something and I thought, I remember that company was called whatever, Rhubarb and Scandi, I'd type it in and put .co.uk or .com on the end and get there. So I think it's certainly worth trying to secure those and search and make sure that they're free in the most straightforward, most legible format, without any dashes or hyphens, because people just aren't going to get that bit right. It's also a good time to check that it looks all right, sort of written as a long word, because suddenly when you see the letters together, you can read other spellings into it, and unfortunate terms can pop up. But yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, because then you've got the ability for people to find you Otherwise, if you go for like just a .uk, for example, you've always got to promote your space on the web for people to find you. Another one to do is search on Companies House. And this is, again, looking long term, because you don't need to do anything in terms of registering a business or sort of filing, starting a limited company or anything at this stage. I mean, I'm still a sole trader, so it's not strictly necessary for some time, really, as we're going along. But what I did was I checked that it was available, such as the time came that I wouldn't think, somebody's already got my name. As it happened, somebody approached me in the process of being in business for about 18 months. Somebody approached me and asked me to buy the name off me, and they were an IT company. I thought, didn't really think of it as to do with just doing things done up. Oh, it's done up north. And so that made me stir my stumps, and I went to Companies House and I actually registered the name. I think it was about £65, and that was simply because I was concerned that somebody might steal it from underneath me. But then my name isn't so personal, apart from the North bit, that's personal to me, but it's not personal to me and not anybody else. It could be used, as you can see, by somebody else. But I don't file tax returns as a limited company. I'm a sole trader, so it's a dormant company, but I have got a registered company name. So it's worth, if you have a similar situation and you think somebody might half-inch that, is to go and do the same. So definitely check these things out. Check the main social media and search platforms. So you've got Facebook, Instagram, Etsy. And then also worth a look, I think, to double check are things like Pinterest. Pinterest, I definitely think, as time goes on, in your sort of second wave of things, it's something you want to look at in terms of sharing the things that you're working on, sharing content. And then less so, you could check it depends what your interests are. Twitter and TikTok. I mean, I personally don't really get Twitter. As a news source, I find it very confusing. And TikTok, is my audience going to be on TikTok? Who knows? So you can have a look at those as well as possible places to register. Thank you. Just checking to see if I can see the chat. Okay. Now, setting up your accounts. So I've created this like a checklist. So hopefully afterwards you could sort of work your way through things. And if you want any help step by step with any of the screens you go through when you're setting things up, we can do that. We can do some screen sharing, or I can record the screen as you go through things if you get stuck with any of it. They are fairly logical because they want to obviously encourage people to sign up things. So I know some of you will already have an Etsy account. So I'd say that's the first thing. I just find it's the easiest place to start. You've already got an audience there, and they're sort of powering all that. You don't need to worry about even things like business bank account, PayPal, that sort of thing, even an email address, because it's all surfaced through their system. So you can suddenly have a shopfront, just like that. And then I've said here also to register your domain name. This is something you might disagree with, but I think it looks more professional if you are starting with your clients, if people start to get in touch with you, if you've got your business name as your email address as opposed to a Gmail address or a Hotmail or whatever. I do think it looks like you mean business, literally, and it isn't very expensive. So obviously if it's not something for right now, park that, but you should be able to secure a domain name for say 10-20 quid and an email package for about £5 a month. So I mean, I'm kind of pulling figures based on my own, but it's not a massive amount, but it might not be something you want to do right away, but you can see that could look good on your sort of communications. And also you're going to put this information into your Facebook business page and your Instagram page, so people are going to be able to see it. Moving on to which, creating a Facebook business page, I think, is pretty nailed on essential. Great way of marketing your business. And I know some of you already have that and be happily, merrily posting on it. And some of you will have Instagram, some of you may not. And I really strongly encourage you to get one because it's a much more visual medium. And I think it's got a sort of great element of sort of sharing and interacting with one another. So I definitely encourage those as a sort of starter for 10. And then I've also captured here, setting up accounts. Maybe you might want to set up a business PayPal so that you've got somewhere where you can buy your materials. You might be buying handles, you might be buying paint or what have you, and then you've got somewhere that's all ring fenced, but also your customers can pay in there if you're taking in a deposit for a commission, for example. That could work because you might want it to have a business name rather than your own name on it. It always just feels a little bit like a sort of amateur sort of seller or home seller when it's just someone's name. So I really think that does give a good impression, because at the end of the day, people are paying you money to do something for them, and they want to sort of feel like they're putting their trust in the right place. So the other thing I've popped there is that a bank account could potentially wait. I didn't have a business bank account till probably about a year ago. I don't think I was in a financial position to really pay myself regularly, so it was all in one pot. So that's why business PayPal, if I'd had that sooner, that would have kept my expenses separate and made that a bit clearer. My particular bank needs you to register your company, so it could depend on whether you can get another bank account and do your name trading as, and then you can use the business name. So I think that's a personal choice, but it's not strictly necessary, especially if you're using systems like Etsy and etc. You don't need to have the customer can't see your account names. And then in terms of other accounts, you might decide that you want to do your expenses through something like a accountancy app like QuickBooks, for example. But you could just use a spreadsheet. I've done tax returns that way as a sole trader, and it's it's more laborious, but it's perfectly fine. So it's not sort of strictly necessary. You don't need to go to that extent. You don't have to have an accountant. You don't have to have, all these sort of things. You can do it for yourself. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think under £1,000, you don't need to pay tax. It's seen as a sort of side hobby anyway. But we can look into that in a bit more detail. This is obviously a bit more high level at this point. Okay, so let's move on to creating a logo. So I think a logo is really important, and I think it's quite important to do it quite early on, which is what I did. But I'm now in the point of sort of rebranding myself, because mine was, actually, if I'm quite honest, mine was created through a online logo generator website. So it was, I paid a small fee and just sat there pressing the button, and lots of different logos popped out. So it wasn't personalized, it wasn't designed for me. And so now I'm having something that sort of fits a bit more with my style as it's evolved, and the font types and everything. So as you've probably seen, and so I think a visual identity for your business does really help differentiate you. You can use it for your thumbnails, use it for your stationery, and I don't mean sort of printed stationery necessarily, because a lot of what we do might be online. But you can have it on your email signature, watermarking your photos, that sort of thing. But here's where I caveat it: it doesn't need to be fancy, and it probably will evolve. You just need to start with something to give your business an identity. And so I've just captured a few different ways you could get a logo, depending on your budget, really. So you could create your own in Canva or in Photoshop if you've got something like that. But Canva's a really nice one because it's got lots of different templates, and it's got a logo generator in there. So I think the one I used was smashinglogo.com from the logo generator websites there. The free logo design is free up to a certain size, and then if you want it for print, you need to bump it up, and they're all about £35 to £39, which is pretty good. You get all the files, and you can change the colours, and you've seen with my logo, I think it's done me pretty well for 4 years. And Wix.com do a logo maker, which from investigating that, because I was quite interested in some of the lower cost web options that you guys might be interested in, I think from there you can go down the route of commissioning somebody or doing it yourself, generating yourself, and then you can edit it and everything. So, and just like I did, I would heartily recommend you come and throw some ideas in the group. You're in a safe space where no one's going to laugh, but people are respectful, I think, and give you positive and good feedback, like you did with my logo. It's really useful to get that insight, because it needs to work for your audience. So yeah, and also I've added Fiverr.com because you can commission people on there, and then you could get something a bit more bespoke. So if you, with say Smashing Logo, I can put in it's a furniture business, and I might get, actually I don't know if it's Smashing Logo or freelogodesign.org, but you can get like little icons of furniture, and it will look, you know, little home icons in there, so it becomes a bit more targeted to your industry. But Fiverr will actually, if you said, right, this is what I feel I want on my logo because my logo's named after such a body or where I live, and I want an icon like that, they could do that. Or the next level up is to commission a bespoke logo. And what we can actually do is go out and talk to some of our sort of other communities of professionals and get some names, some recommended designers if people have got that a bit of budget to do that. But I would say, you know, start with something simple until the time is right, and then do it. And if you're not sure on your name, certainly start with something simple. And those logo generators websites are addictive. I'm having a website designed, branding designed, and I'm still sitting on there going, oh, I like that, I like that. So go and have a little look at those if you feel a bit stuck, and you might find some inspiration. And then, and I'm talking about capturing your message. This is fairly simple at this stage, and it will evolve over time. Again, basically for your Facebook page and for your profiles, like your Etsy shop and your Instagram profile, you need a description, really. So it's a statement that sums up what you're about. And so your potential customers get a sort of snapshot of who you are, what you do, and what, if you specialize in anything particularly, you know, what's important to you. So I put there that mine might be Modern Lux Furniture Recycler, specializing in vintage furniture restoration and redesign projects. Or it's a description. It can be longer than that as well. It's just off the top of my head. And mine's constantly changing. You know, you're always sort of redefining. But there might be something you might be particularly inspired by the eco side of the business. It might be that you might be inspired by the sort of salvage side, or transforming antiques, or, you know, bring that forward so that it differentiates you. You're not just a furniture painter, just an upcycler. There's, you know, a little bit more there to say. So have a little think about that. It's one of those things that I find evolves as I'm doing stuff. When I'm working on furniture, I find that the words pop into my head and then have little realizations, and I think, you know, so that's the lovely unfolding of your business developing and becoming more and more of a personal brand and a personal business sort of set up. You know, sort of it reflects you, and, you know, you kind of get clearer on what you're about, and what differentiates you really. And then you might also want to create a shorter version, a sort of strap line that goes underneath your logo. So for example, on your email signature, you might want to say logo, and then, for example, I've got unique modern vintage furniture designed, which would also work well on your website, or on your Etsy shop, you know, as a slogan, basically. So have a little think about those. You know, that can help you start to niche into the sort of things that float your boat and sort of make you in the business, and not everybody else. Okay, I'm just going to check the time, which should probably is quite difficult to do because we started a little bit late. Okay, so number 6 is go and personalize. So all that's meaning is to bring together what we've just done there, to use your logo, your description, and your social media and your Etsy links in your email signature, because that in itself is marketing. Every time you send an email, you know, you never know who wants a piece of furniture, who your customers could be anywhere really. So to have your essentially calling card on your email signature, I think is sensible. It might be somebody wants to feature you in something, you know, it's just having that there. As I say, with the links as well is a good idea. So you can have the little icons for social media. And I just have Instagram, Facebook, and a little app done up north. This is why it's really good to get those account names as simple as possible. People can almost guess them as well. And then you want to go and add your email. If you want to add your phone number, fair enough. I've got a virtual landline actually, so that I know when it's coming through on a leads number and it beeps and says it's a virtual landline. And you can set your hours through a website. So that's one thing you can do if you don't want to put your mobile phone out there. You could have a business phone, and it's £6 a month or something like that. And that's a good way to ring fence it from personal phones anyway. You want to put your business type in there, whether it's interior design business, furniture business. There's quite you have to sort of shoehorn yourself a little bit. Your links and locations, fill in all the profile fields that you can, and actually jumping down there, all the Etsy shop sections. So you want to talk about, you want to fill in the introduction, you want to fill in all of the updates that you can on there, and keep them sort of up to date and keep sort of tweaking with them, because that can really help your the sort of the findability of your Etsy shop. Also, a little one that might not necessarily sort of, what's the word? Occur to you, yes, sorry, deserted me, might not occur to you, is to put your business page account name and link it through in your personal Facebook profile. Now, you might think, well, my customers aren't my friends and family, but it's not so much that. It's that in the world of Facebook, when you're moving around, if you're in groups where your customer might be, you might be in an interior design group, you might be in a DIY group, you might be in, you know, places like a vintage furniture group. When you go in and comment and interact, you're going to generally be doing it through your Facebook profile. And if somebody thinks, oh, she knows what she's talking about, or I like her style, she's just shared something. You know, a lot of these groups don't let you share links, but if people click through your name, they're going to then find your business on the left-hand side of your Facebook profile. And similarly, if you have a personal Instagram, you could do the same. I mean, I find it harder to do one Instagram, so if anybody's got two, well done. But certainly I find having the personal Facebook profile, there's not a lot of groups let you join as your business page. Not very many at all. So you want to get that link in there so it's really easy for people to find you. And the final one, in personalizing, this isn't like super urgent, but I think it's something to have a go at. I know when I started my Facebook page and my Etsy shop, I just had a banner, which was a bunch of hexagonal fairy lights, which I had in my first studio. And I had to keep adding it till it was the right shape. Now, it's so much easier now. You can go into Canva, you can put in Etsy banner, Facebook banner, and you'll get not only the right size, but you'll also get some templates you can use. So you can use your logo, maybe a couple of product images, or just things that sort of you think sum you up, and you can create yourself a shop banner on both areas. And that's going to really help sort of bring it to life and make it look really professional. Okay, so that was section on branding, getting started with your brand. Like I say, it doesn't need to all be sorted out. You notice I didn't talk about templates for your posts, so that I just think, you know, there's enough to be going on with right there. So I'm going to move on to presenting your products professionally, and just think about where I'm up to. Ooh, timing. So presenting your products, pricing your products, and listing your products. Those are 3 sections. So presenting your products professionally. I mean, I guess a lot of you will be on board with this anyway. So, but just as a quick sort of overview, why does it matter? Because it gives them the wow factor. You want your images to be something that grabs people's attention when they're scrolling, so it stands out, especially in a marketplace like Etsy. Your picture needs to be one that grabs them, and it helps the customer to imagine it. You know, people to aspire to owning these pieces, because they kind of see the lifestyle. They think, wow, that looks amazing. That's what it could look like in my house. And also, those much more professional shots are going to help people see the value in the piece that you're selling as well. So you'll be able to, you know, realize the appropriate prices for your work, you know, for all that effort you've put in. So this is a quick run through. I probably won't go into, you know, sort of into too much detail, because what we will do as a follow-up we will do a session, a practical session, showing you some of the setups with lighting and styling, and actually go through that in a practical way. But this is a good, like, sort of little tick list, essentially, to things to think about. That you know, in terms of making sure that your products are presented professionally, and it is something that really sets people apart when you see pictures on, say, Marketplace of you know, people who are sort of starting out, and the pieces are sort of quite wonky, they're shot from funny angles, you know, it's not really telling the story of the piece really clearly for people. And often it's just where people have taken the picture, it might just be, you know, against the sofa, or you know, in this sitting room, whatever. So this is the ways that we can differentiate our stuff, and we want it to almost feel a little bit like it's in a magazine, or a brochure, and people get to just see that piece and focus in on it. So that's why we talk a lot about backdrops and flooring, finding a good backdrop, and also a section of floor you can use. And if you haven't, then we fake it. That's basically, you know, whether it's to use boards or whether it's to use a cloth. I've used floorboards, that sort of thing. It's better really to have something tucked away that you can pull out and, you know, cover up an area and do what you need to do, than having to keep clearing a certain area of your house, because it just gets quite stressful. So I think give that some thought, find out a way. I'm going to show you a couple of mine in a minute, and maybe it'll make you sort of see that actually doesn't need to look perfect because it's smoke and mirrors on the camera, but it's something you do need to come up with a solution for, and we'll always be looking to get it better. Like, I've got a pale blue floor at the moment in my studio, and it's not ideal. You know, so it's and it's, if I go through my pictures, my background, my scenery changed a lot. So, you know, it's just something to pay some attention to. Lighting, if you haven't got natural light, definitely invest in a pair of photography softboxes. They, I think, are absolutely essential to getting a good equal light distribution across your piece, which will really make it pop. Styling, I think the best thing to do is to use things from your own home to start with, because that's going to really bring out your style. You know, don't try and emulate somebody else's styling. I think it's great to be inspired by other people. If somebody's got a big display up on a wall, for example, you might try and do something like that, but try and bring your style into it. And remember that you can, you know, you can repurpose things. You can paint them, you know, in the color from the piece of furniture. You know, if you've got something, you can paint jars, and, you know, I often paint vases to match. So you don't need to spend a lot of money. You do need to sort of think about the height of things and balancing them and clustering them together to get, you know, a good sort of layout on the piece of furniture. But yes, you don't need to spend an awful lot. I mean, a lot of stuff can be picked up in charity shops. You could have a little trawl around your charity shops and think about spraying things, think about you know, maybe decorating them differently to match the piece of furniture. Like, I've often painted frames, that sort of thing. But it might be that you decide your own personal choices. Actually, my pieces have got so much going on the front, I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm not going to stage them, or I might just have something on the floor next to it, like a plant. I think it's really good to explore those things. And the lady who I want to come in and talk to us about styling is, you know, got different ways of sort of going about things and theming things. And I think it's good to explore that and to find your style. But we will do some practical demos as well, just some of the key things, because as I come on to getting good shots, this is something where, you know, there are some certain do's and don'ts, I think. And I do think it's good to shake it up and to come up with things that you like doing. But one thing, for example, I think it's really important to get a good shot of your piece of furniture head on, full frontal, as I like to call it, and get down low and level, so that the sides of your piece don't appear to taper, and you're looking directly at the flat surface, and everything is square. To get a shot like that as a lead image is got most of the impact. And obviously we want to get things like the side shot, close-ups, doors open, drawers open, that sort of thing, and then maybe a top-down shot. But we want to make sure that the piece is sort of centralized. We don't have lots of space above it. We're not focusing in on the artwork above, you know, it's about the furniture, but we don't want to be too tight in. So there's lots of things to consider like that. And you can certainly, having a look at other people's framing is a really good way of, you know, maybe they've zoomed in on the interior, and that sort of thing is a good way to get ideas. Yeah, the shots we get, and really we need to have a good variety, because as I'll come on to listing our stuff, you're going to sell on Etsy, you really need to fill all of the photo slots. So that's 10, and you know, by filling them all, you're maximizing your sort of take up, and so the better your profile is, the better your listings are, the more you're going to get sort of seeded into the search, and it's sort of ticking all those boxes, like the keywords and everything like that. Okay, and then we've gone too far. Just go back. Yeah, so photo editing, we'll definitely cover this off in some more detail as we go through. It's a great way to get around those things you can't get over in the home. If you're finding it difficult to get around things, you can edit through things out. And I've listed here Snapseed and Photoshop Mix are both free, and apps on your phone. I use Photoshop because I'm a bit more dexterous with my hands, but Snapseed's great for getting in there and making some changes quickly on your device. Like I said about cropping in, if you didn't get the crop on your phone, you can then crop it afterwards. And as I said, phone, I do all on my phone, so you don't need to buy expensive photography equipment. I think a lot of us probably do just use our phones. But I would strongly suggest editing the levels, brightness and contrast on your images. I'm going to show you one in a second just so you can see how I sort of tweak something. And then you can use the tools like the heal and the clone tool to actually take out things that might, you know, be in the way, which I'll show you in a sec as well. So this is, I just wanted to show you this so you can see what's possible. This is the view in my garage. There's wooden boards and there's wooden floorboards, wallpapered MDF. No, it's ply, wallpaper ply. And then there's loose laminate floorboards down there, which can all be packed away. And then you've got the final shot. I think I may have edited the background there because the wallpaper's not in evidence there, but you can see how something simple like that can actually translate once you've got the lights turned on. And obviously I shut the door as well, I think, to restrict the lighting. It can create an image that's perfectly suitable for sale then. But you know, the behind the scenes, it's like I say, it's smoke and mirrors. This is another one in my kitchen, and this is a backdrop that's actually stretched across the back wall, where there's actually a pantry, there's a radiator, there's all sorts of stuff. You can see a spice rack sticking at the top there. I was struggling so much with space. And in fact, you might be able to spot at the back of this that the floorboards are on the backdrop. It's actually got floorboards as well, but you couldn't see it really that much in the final picture. Still experimenting with my staging, as you can see here with the empty frames. It was a thing at the time. But, you know, it worked. It did the job. You know, it got better. The floor's horrible, but that's the kitchen floor. I literally used sticky back tape to stretch it between the door frames, which are left and right of the sideboard, so that you can see the one on the right, but the one on the left's out of shot, and stretched it across to get as many of the wrinkles out as possible. And that picture, you know, thanks to that picture, I won an award, you know, so it's amazing what you can do when you just look at the first picture. So don't think it has to be perfect. You can still get good shots that will do the job and sell your furniture. This is another one where I've actually used a backdrop. And you can see how awful the picture is on the left. The staging's awful. You can see the gap in the garage. Probably, I think we've attached those panels to the wall now and they've got a huge gap. And so I've actually just cut it out and put it against a backdrop completely. It's not the greatest because it hasn't got shadows under its legs, so it's sort of floating, but that is something I can show you how to do. We can do mirror reflections, all that sort of stuff, which can liberate you if you definitely haven't got the space to be putting walls in and etc. And this is just to show you an edit that done in Snapseed just the other day. So I've actually touched up the leg on the chair, taken the pipe out down the right hand side, darkened it, brought a bit more drama through the brightness and contrast. I think that's probably it. I don't know why I didn't take that line out the floor. This is my studio, which doesn't have a great floor, but we're getting away with it right now. So you can see everything's always a work in progress, but you know, it's better than it was, that's for sure. Definitely improved for me. Okay, whoop, whoop, go back down. Okay. I'm not going to go into massive detail about pricing your products. This is here for you when you're going through, really, because we've had quite a lot of conversations about this. And I think what you need to do is create an itemized spreadsheet capturing all the costs. This is where it goes a little bit sort of detailed, but I wanted you to have the things to consider set out here for when you come to this afterwards. So the purchase, time to source, time to design, to paint, potentially the business running costs, all of those sort of items. And set yourself an hourly rate. So I've included what my hourly rate is there, which is £25 an hour for the general work, 45 for specialist and bespoke design work, which is still not terribly high. I'm realising more and more that there needs to be more added in there around the admin and the communication and the service that we provide, because it sometimes it ends up being just literally the time that you know working your nuts off, I was going to say, but the sort of stuff that we provide in terms of design service and that consultation, everything. I'm not saying the initial consultation, but there's a lot of work goes into that process if we're doing a commission. Obviously not so much when you're doing a sale, you cut all that out, but then you've got to list the piece and you've got to do all the sort of management of that side of things. And you've also got transaction fees and listing fees. So you need to sort of consider those in your sale prices, and just be happy that, obviously you're going to be removing, I think it's something like 18% on, I do it 18% on Etsy and 20 on Vinteria, I think, something like that. Somebody might correct me, because I know they take a percentage off your delivery fees now. It's a bit naughty. And then I've put their 20% profit for each project on top of those. Sometimes I sort of flex that around if I feel it's probably a bit high, but that's, again, that's probably a money mindset thing with me. So then I would keep a sheet for each project, copy it, and then edit it, and then I start to build up a bit of a reference, and it's very easy to price a job because I can go back to it and say, somebody's paid for that before, and I get less of the jittery feeling of, oh, is it too much, because I can see that I've itemized it and I feel comfortable with it. And I think it's okay to go and look at what other people are putting out there, but I certainly wouldn't reduce my price based on somebody else doing something for less, because people will pay the prices that we're putting out there. And I think also often it denotes sort of quality, so when people are selling things too cheaply, it can sometimes make people think, what's wrong with it? So you should stick to a price that you feel comfortable with, that covers your time, rather than trying to think of the going rate. I see this a lot in some of the groups, like where people say, how much should it be? And somebody says, oh yeah, it should be 250. They haven't asked them how long it took them, and considered anything like that. It's just like it should go for a going rate, but they didn't ask how much it cost to buy, how much the materials were, anything like that, which that doesn't sit right with me, because you could end up making no money. It costs what it costs to make, and it's that's how it has to be. So yes, I was saying, I think you need to go for what you feel it deserves. Hold your breath and hit go when you're sending that commission quote off, or estimate, or posting up your piece. And as you go along over time, you'll probably find that you inch yourself forward up over the prices. Only caveat is I'd saying, if you're doing something and you end up spending a long time doing it and you're putting it up for sale, I wouldn't necessarily capture all the hours of the learning. If you're going backwards and forwards perfecting something, you might need to sort of ring fence some of that as part of your learning process, as opposed to, yes, this took me 2 weeks to do. So it's a bit of a balance between it. It's what the market can sort of take as well. So when I take 3 weeks to create a piece of furniture, I'm obviously going to have to absorb some of that in my own costs, and I can take that long sometimes. And then we're also, and we've got some of these in the files for you to look at and to create your own from. By all means, create a professional looking document for your estimates for commissions, so you can use your logo and all your other details on there now. I suggest that it's good to have a terms and conditions document. It can be a simple one-pager with a disclaimer saying that these are non-refundable, and send that with your estimates. And that way you've got your terms set out, and you hopefully don't run into issues, because at least it's sort of there. The people have to pay for the courier fees at the end, and this is a vintage piece of furniture, those sort of things that you might be aware that we've talked about before. And then the last one is listing your products. And so I'm suggesting Etsy first as a ready-made audience, and then sharing your products via Facebook and Instagram via posts. I think those are really good ways to start, to get started straight away if you've not been posting stuff. And then the way that Facebook has changed their shops lately makes it much easier for you to list products in your Facebook and Instagram shops, which means you can post about it and you can tag in that item and people can buy it directly in your Facebook, which is brilliant. So I would suggest when you get time to, you can start to investigate adding and setting it up the shop in your Facebook page, business page. I think that's, mine links to Shopify. So being able to do it specifically in your Facebook shop, which you will be able to if you don't have Shopify, I think is brilliant. And then I've also put Vinteria, and this really depends on where Vinteria are going at the moment, because there's been some changes. And it might be something we need to sort of review. I don't know if they're being as accepting of painted furniture at the moment, and if people have got to have a certain amount of items to sell. So we'll have to look at that one. But it's been a very good platform for me, and I do painted furniture, so it's, yeah. But I think it's in different management, so it's a good platform. But we just have to watch and brief on that. To look at later, Pinterest, because you can pin items in there, rich pins which have information, so you can pin from Etsy to your Pinterest board. If you're already a Pinterester or a pinner, you might want to set yourself a business one and start to do things like that. If you're not, let's park that and come to it another time. It's essentially a really good search, basically, and people go on there for ideas, inspiration. So you want your pictures in there, people finding your designs. You know, if they're looking for something specific, they might find your products coming up from Etsy. So it's definitely one to watch and to go and to move on to. And then I've also said your own website, which is really good to send people to, because obviously you don't have to pay the fees. And they're very low cost options like Etsy Pattern, which will take all of your listings across, or Wix, which can be less than £10 a month to set to do. And you could just have a simple storefront, and it might be you might start to add in, you know, other bits of information, a bit of news or some reviews and some feedback. But I would say, you know, only when you're ready for that. You know, I don't feel you need to jump in to your own website with all you know, right away, because bearing in mind you have to build your traffic to your website. So if you did that first, open your doors, ta-da, you know, you would find that the only way people would find you is when you're putting the link into things and getting you know, to build up that traction does take time, and good SEO, which, you know, is also a bit more of an income thing. So it's great to have, because you can put that on your Instagram or your Facebook and people will go there and you wouldn't have to pay fees on each sale. So it's worth thinking about when the time's right. But I say you don't need to rush that. And then I've just put another few down to explore. If anybody's done all of that and thinks, well, what else can I have a look at? Because we're not overflowing with places to sell right now, because I don't really bother with eBay, but I think it's good, particularly for vintage, pure vintage, you know, rather than paint vintage. And a marketplace, I just don't think it's worth bothering. I think you'll get a lot of time wasters, because it's, I might be wrong, people might be doing okay on it. I don't really bother with them. There's no harm in listing on eBay anyway and just seeing how it goes. But other ones to explore, Amazon Handmade, quite intrigued by that. It looks like, you know, it seems to be doing all right for some people. Not on the high street, there's upcycled furniture sellers on there. You have to have very good photography for that place. And then any others, we're going to, you know, we'll start to have a look at what others they're out there. I've seen a couple of names floating around recently. There are others that I'm aware of, which I would say, as far as I'm aware, don't bother with them right now. New Monday, Vintup, Shpock. Wouldn't necessarily think that, you know, there is one floating around, Handmade or Made by Me, which we can have a look at and add to the list if we think it's any good. So that's my overview of where to start to list things. And let's have a little look at the time. Gosh, I've talked more this time than I did when I was preparing it. So, tips for listing. I'm going to whiz through this because I seem to have taken up a lot more time than I did with the run through. So writing a description that builds excitement for the buyer, essentially. So you're going to describe your piece, the age, the style, the design, and sort of set the scene for how it could be used. And you know, if it's really versatile, it could go in any room, it could be a statement piece, that sort of thing. And describe the finish. Don't go into intense detail about the upcycling process, because the customers, I don't think, are really bothered, and they don't want to understand that something was in, you know, a terrible mess, because it might undermine the piece to them. This is the sort of thing we can do through our stories or other places in social media where we want to engage with people, you know, about our expertise. But perhaps in the listings themselves, let's sell, this is a gorgeous vintage item which is, you know, been enhanced, or was tired and now it's, you know, now it's not, now it's unique, you know, that sort of thing. You don't need to go into what products you've used, because, you know, like I said, a highly durable protective finish rather than general finishes makes sense. And also then writing descriptive titles using words you think people search by. So mine might be black and gold, art deco, vintage, sideboard with geometric design. That might be one of mine. And then you can use those keywords as well. We'll go into more detail about keywords. We'll get some sort of expertise on keywording and some of the other tools you can use to help your keyword, particularly in Etsy is the one that's got a very sort of strong keyword angle. That will help you be found more in search on there. And as I mentioned before, use all 10 image slots on Etsy. Make sure your file names are right. Do this for any time you add images anywhere. Make sure that you're using a descriptive name and you put hyphens between the words, so that when it basically prioritizes your image through image searches then. So mine might be art -deco -sideboard -done up -north, for example, and that would mean that my files could be found, my images could be found in searches as well. And I've also said about your thumbnail in Etsy particularly, that your thumbnail will take a subset of the picture, so it's quite a good idea to have the main image with a white border around it, quite a thick white border, and then it centralizes your image. If anybody knows the actual dimensions, that would be marvelous. But I've just taken it out into Photoshop, added a big thick border, and then people can see my whole piece instead of just a part of the middle of it, because that's not very scroll stopping. Work out your delivery costs if you can standardize, and if you can, I mean, most of mine are about £65. You could even set it as free delivery, which bumps you up the search as well. And then in your footer, you could say additional delivery fees for these areas. Please contact us for a quote, for example. A lot of us tend to just set the actual price and have bands for it for sort of different size, different areas. But that's something you can do. And then in that footer, I would take some of your T's and C's and put them in there. You could also place that so you could have links to other things as well if you wanted to. You could link people to your social media, and so that people can go and find you. Which is just going to see if I can see the chat. Just catch it with everybody. Wonderful. Okay. Just move the screen a little bit there. There we go. Okay, so show up and share. This is the bit where we're going to talk about getting social and marketing your business online. Let's go get stuck in. Okay, so there's only a couple of slides around the next two, actually. So show up and share. This one might be the hardest one for a lot of us. And there's no magic wand really, but maybe I'm hoping I can give you some magic words. And the first couple of magic words I'm going to say are be you. You don't have to be the showman or showwoman here. You don't have to be creating reels on your head. You don't have to be brilliant at it all, or singing or dancing like you see people pointing at things. You can be quieter, you can be vulnerable, you can be relatable, you can be imperfectly perfect, all the rest. There's people out there for everyone, and everyone connects with somebody by just being themselves, really. So don't let that hold you back, you know, sort of thinking, oh, I don't know what to say, and, you know, why, you know, I haven't got sort of like all bells and whistles. And there's plenty of people out there who will connect with you, and they want to see the person behind the brand as well. They want to see and hear from you. So I suggest picking 2 places to be seen. It's quite a common recommendation is to focus on 2 social media only. And really, I would suggest that you just stick to Facebook and Instagram. I mean, because they're the same business, they interlink quite well. The same company now, but also I think they are the best for our businesses, our type of businesses. For meeting people, for sharing, you know, for interacting together, networking, I think they're head and shoulders above the rest. So some ideas of things that you can share, and it doesn't just have to be those finished final shots, behind the scenes, work in progress, the joy in what you're doing, getting people to sort of answer questions, get their opinions. So you could have a flat lay with some different colours and say, what colours do you think I should paint this today? People love to engage with that sort of thing. And I think that's really important to remember, that it's, you know, it's very easy to sort of just do a post about, oh, I've just did this today. But actually, we do have, you know, we do need to sort of push it a little bit to try and when I say entertain, it's not sort of like juggling or anything, you know, I don't have to go all the way out there, but there's something about what you're doing will resonate with people, that it's interesting, or that it's informing them something, or, as I said, it's engaging by asking them a question. So if we can try and bring a bit of that into it, we get a bit more response from people. It can help us a lot more than just literally posting stuff. And one of the key things is to post and not ghost. So post, and if people comment, is to answer and respond, because that forces our posts to take off. So be around, respond to people's comments, and get into conversation. If you put a story up and people say something to you, respond to it, because all of that gives you brownie points that gets your posts moving out into the ether even further. So I popped up, I know somebody asked a little while ago about the best times to post. Personally, for me, it's early mornings, pre 8 a.m. really. So that doesn't happen that often. And evenings before 9 as a drop dead sort of point. Weekends are much quieter. Sunday nights tend to be better because people are starting to sit down and relax and scroll. So that's my rule of thumb. Have a look in your insights, though. That will give you some idea as you go along. But it can be a bit trial and error. I would certainly say in the middle of the day, you know, generally the times that you're not looking at your phone, you could get an indication of where other people are. They're looking at it before they get to work and after they've finished work, and, you know, they've finished their tea and everything. So those are probably the best times. There are scheduling tools, but it's always better to post organically into, particularly Instagram. It's better to post natively in the application. Facebook has a scheduler, Creator Studio, which I use, which is pretty good. And I suggest you try to get into the habit of sharing a couple of stories every day, whether it's here's me with my cup of tea, here's me just settling down into, this is what I'm working on today. You've probably seen some of mine, and they don't need to be pretty. They're just giving people a real flavour of the behind the scenes. And you can link your Instagram stories to your Facebook stories, so you only have to do it in one place. So that could take you 5 minutes. You could just make sure you did something, a couple every morning, or one in the morning, one in the evening. And it's a lot of people go straight to the stories when they go into, not necessarily Facebook, but certainly in Instagram. And I'm saying a post on your grid and your page, your business page, every day if you can. But I would say 3 times a week is a good rule. You know, do what you can. Don't beat yourself up. This is the thing. You know, don't beat yourself up if you don't if you go quiet. I personally, as an introvert, do go into myself and go a bit quiet now and again, because, you know, you've given a lot out, and, you know, I'm just learning not to beat myself up about it. You know, it's not the end of the world. You know, give while you can, put it out there when you can. But yeah, sort of, where am I up to? But yes, anyway, it's just important to be out there. This is a great way and a free way to promote your business and to build an audience, and to differentiate yourself. I mean, people buy from people, as they say. And I think one of the key things that I would pass on to anybody that I've not always done, is to be consistent. And like I say, there's times you go quiet, that's okay, but get back on, you know, the horse and to keep posting when you think no one's listening is a really important thing to do, because you'd be surprised. The people can come forward 2 months later and say, oh, I saw that thing that you did. What? I don't think anybody was listening. And you do start to doubt yourself, and you go, oh no, he's listening, and it's tumbleweed, and then it becomes a, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy, because nobody comments, and so you lose your nerve, and then you don't post, and then it goes into a cycle. Just going to check the chat. So be consistent as you can. Keep showing up. Keep the faith, basically. Yeah, so work out hashtags Instagram that people who might buy your furniture will use to find things. So hashtag interiors inspo, for example, that's quite a big one actually, but you want to go and follow some of those tags, use them in your posts. Same with groups in Facebook. I think you want to be looking at interiors groups, DIY groups, home groups, that sort of thing, home buyers, in these areas. So think of hashtags as a little bit like groups, because it's a gathering of content, not furniture painting necessarily. If you're going to spend your time, although it's good to get feedback from your fellow painters, they're not your buyers. And so if you spend a lot of time hanging out in Painted Beautiful or Furniture Painters Unite, just socially, you might miss out on showing who you are and getting to know a tribe of people who like the same things as you specifically and might buy your furniture. So I think you need to sort of at least balance it, because it is good to have that community around your business as well, because it is quite a solo thing. But you've got us. And then I've just said playing with features like reels and filters can be a bit of fun. But the really key takeaway from this is, as well as making sure to be consistent, is to get out there and socialize as well, and to comment on other people's stuff and share other people's stuff. I don't do it as much as I want to, but that's just a time thing. But that is how you can grow exponentially, because it's not just a sort of take thing. It's, you know, it's a mutual thing. It's reciprocal, particularly in Instagram. So you know, get out there. If you just have, you know, 20 minutes in front of the telly at night, and you can just go to a few hashtags and comment on a few posts, it will really help you grow your account massively. Right, I'm just going to check the chat, and then I'll move on to the last. Just a question there actually about from Tracy about when you share stories, do you share in groups or in the general area of Facebook? So stories are actually created in a separate area themselves. And so I create mine in Instagram because it's a nice interface to create them in. And then within there, there's a setting which automatically pushes it into the stories area of Facebook, which you will see on your mobile phone across the top as you go in. It's a separate thing. You'll see they're actually the other way around, the sort of vertical rather than the posts you get in Facebook. So you don't have the opportunity to share it anywhere else. It just sits in its own contained stories area. But I find creating them on Instagram is quite a good place to do that. Yeah. Okay, so last one. This is, I think, easy to forget about, but actually probably one of the most important things, I think, in terms of my own business growth and personal growth, I guess. Let me just move that because we've gone a bit wonky. There we go. Are we in the right place? Yes, we are. So this is to work on you. And I've used a little quote here that I like, which is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think a lot of the things that I've got put in my own way have been down to my mindset. And I think my business could have been a lot more successful was it not for my mindset. I think the biggest thing that can get in the way of your business success is you, not whether you've got an Instagram account or whether you've got this or that, the other. Those are all great things to be doing to put yourself out there and to give yourself the best opportunity. But if you're getting in the way of yourself, then, you know. So I think, I mean, I still have to work on this all the time. And it gets easier because you have more behind you to kind of go, you know, you can ignore the gremlins a little bit more. But I think having your own business does force you to confront all your inner thought processes and demons, and in order to grow, and obviously not just the business yourself. And I think you may already have some awareness of what your blocks are, or it might be that you need to start to sort of like have a little look into it because you know you're not making the progress you want to, or you feel stuck, or you're procrastinating. And it is worth taking some time just to start to look into it a little bit, because it will have benefits in terms of your business. It's funny to sort of think about it that way, but it does. The business is not a tick list that sits sort of separately from us. It's a very personal thing, and especially because we're doing it largely by ourselves. So here are some of the things that we might have. I've just listed a few. We might have the fear of failure, perfectionism. That's me, definitely. I know a few of us here have imposter syndrome. That's a really big one with women, is, feeling they're going to be found out, and they're going to know what we're saying about sending off furniture, and they're going to realise they're going to say it's rubbish, or the finish isn't very good. Lack of confidence, self-esteem, self-love, money mindset issues, feeling that you're being greedy, thinking that, you're charging too much, that sort of thing. There's an awful lot to unpack in there, but just some of the things that we've touched upon as we've been talking. And the things we might do because of that, retreat. I'm definitely guilty of this, not showing up or engaging fully, or marketing your work, not telling people about it, just trundling on and not blowing your own trumpet, as I would say. Negative self-talk, little thought patterns going round and round, sort of overwhelm and anxiety, feeling stuck and scared to take action. Procrastinating is a big one that we've talked about before, is comparisonitis, and it's really hard to avoid in this world with so many talented people in our industry, and the whole social media out there, and people just looking amazing, turning up, as they say, with their show reel on Instagram, and you just think, oh my god. But it's the thief of joy, as they say. So these are things that we might put in our own way and might make it difficult for us to, and also the play small, make it difficult for us to make progress. So I do think it's worth building into your planning, spending some time on you. I'm not very structured with it, I have to say. I tend to sort of be quite sporadic. So I've just gathered some ideas here because, I really believe it's personal choice how you choose to explore these things that might be just holding you back a bit. And I really think this is actually what we're all here to learn in life, rather than furniture upcycling. I think this is what we're challenged with in our lifetimes, is to grow and to work on these issues. So I've just gathered some things together there that might give you some ideas if it's something you've not really thought about before, or you're looking for other avenues. And I'd love to know what you do. If you've got any suggestions for us, this is an open forum. This is just, I haven't done all of these things, but talking about it, that's what we do in the group, which is brilliant. We've already had some realizations about how we've got things in common, and knowing there's other people feeling the same way as you is a massive thing, as to knowing that you're not a weirdo. We're imperfectly perfect or perfectly imperfect, I'm not sure which way around, but we can be vulnerable, we can be chaotic, all those things, and it just makes you go, oh yeah, that's good. Okay, and you can still be successful and be a bit all over the place. We're not going to solve all these issues and then go and be successful. We're going to work on these things while we're doing the other stuff, and the more things we do, the more we push out of our comfort zone, these things will start to shift, and we'll start to feel more confident, we'll start to feel more self-belief, because we're doing those things. So this is part of the whole journey. So don't wait. You don't want to fix these things first. These are just part of the adventure. Affirmations. I've actually put a couple of affirmations here, but I know time's dragging on, so I'm going to leave them in the thing and you can read them. One is a more sort of general affirmation about yourself. One is one I've written as a creative insider affirmation. I think, how we can sort of equip ourselves, which I might put in the description for our group. And if you'd like to contribute anything to it, any extra lines that you'd like to put in it, I'd like to hear about it. So I shall leave that for you to read separately. But things like vision boarding, journaling, really getting out your story, working through things, you know, from your past and your timeline, and pulling through little nuggets of things about, you know, that have helped sort of develop you and got you to where you are today, and appreciating the things you've achieved. You know, all this could be really useful. There's tons of stuff around this that you can delve into. And vision boarding is a great way of helping you sort of see where you want to be. I've mentioned about meditating and insight timer as a good recommendation that I've shared with you before. And I think you've shared some resources around that too. And things like coaching, LNP and RTT. I haven't done these things. I've done one little RTT session and business coaching, but not, you know, personal coaching in that way. But yeah, what else? What else can we be doing? Yes, so I have also... Oh, there's information. There's a slightly longer one. I'll just leave that there. Talking about being, you know, letting myself make mistakes, you know, being kind to myself and all that sort of stuff. And I've just added a book list, actually, because I've got quite a nice little library of books that inspire me around the topics that we sort of have brought us together. And one in particular for anybody who, because I know some people in the group do feel pretty creative, but others doubt their creativity, is Big Magic. It's one that I've recently got my hands on by Elizabeth Gilbert, who's Eat, Pray, Love. And this one is Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear, which she's just eminently quotable about creativity, and she fully believes, like me, that everybody is creative. So that's a good one if that's where you're sort of stuck. I have End the Struggle and Dance with Life by my bedside, and I'm very much a dip in and out person. I'm not very structured, as I've said, so I just pull that open and find something that resonates with me as I go. And then I've just bought Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. I've never read any of her stuff. How the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, love, parent and lead. So Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway is a really good one for anybody who's feeling creative but getting in their own way. And you may have read some of these, and you might have some to add, and I'd be very interested to pop a list in the files, and we can keep adding to it. So it's a really quick run through the sort of personal development side of things, but I do think it's something that's worth putting some time to, even if it's just some guided meditations, because you can just literally pick a topic out and say, right, I'm struggling with this, and sit there and have somebody else help you through it. So that's slightly over time, but yeah, towards the end of the session now. And what I'd like to invite you to do is to share your progress. So I'm going to share this presentation with you as a sort of workbook, as a sort of notebook, basically, where you can put things down. But if there's anything we can help with in the group, that's what we're here for. So just as I shared information about my new logo, if you wanted to throw in stuff that you want to get ideas on, suggestions, anything like that, that's exactly what I want us to be doing, and helping one another in a positive, productive way, which we've been doing, which is wonderful. You know, because I think we've all got that sort of growth mindset. We want to shift ourselves on, but in a positive way, not in a, you know. And I think that's really exciting. Perhaps you've ticked off something significant that you want to celebrate with everybody. I'd really like to see you sharing those wins. And any breakthroughs or realizations that might help one another. And like, you know, that I'm in the same position. You know, there's always things where I go, well, penny drop, or some things I have to learn more than once before they sink in. So please do share. This probably is be a bit of a living document. I'll sort of adapt it over time, because you know it's the first time I've presented it. So I'd love to get suggestions and things. Maybe I've missed some bits, maybe there's extra bits I can add, and we can evolve this for the new people when they join us. I'm just going to go to the Q&A. Just checking. Nobody's there. That's good. And then the chat. Oh, good. Okay. If anybody's got any questions, I can hang on. Strange when I can't see you all, and I don't know that you're still there. I'll come back. Oh, you're still there. It's a different format for me, but I hope that worked all right with the PowerPoint and everything, so you could see what was going on well enough. Let me just get rid of that that's in the way. Yes, Rochelle said, I know some influencers pre-plan content, great for us to have other jobs or starting as a business. Yeah, it's I find it incredibly difficult to pre-plan content. I find I have to write in the moment, and that means that you're literally doing it as you need to get it out, and that's hard. So if you can get into the mind space of, and also probably a lot of my content is done at the time of, you know, I take a picture of something because it's just finished, so it's hard to do that in advance because you haven't finished it and got the photo. So, but that's something I'd like to improve upon. Certainly, yeah, definitely. Planoly is a great app. Claire is suggesting Planoly is a great app to prep plan content. Yeah, I really struggle with it, I have to say. Pre-plan to pre-plan content, Claire says. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We're using Creator Studio for Facebook at the moment, but the Instagram stuff tends to go out as it's done, and Instagram isn't really happy with any other third-party posting platforms. Really, you'll get a better reach if you post organically in the app. But I'll have a little look at Planoly. I'd love something that would help me visually see my content ahead of time, no matter where I post it. I'm just hanging on for you in case anything you want to ask. But if not, what I'll do is I will take this presentation and just save it into the units. It'll be the morning with this as well, because this will have to render, and I'll post those up together. And if you have any other questions, or if you've got any questions related to your projects, if you're wrapping things up and you obviously missed the weekly Q&A, just post and we'll get on to that. Hopefully most of you nearly finished for Christmas now. I know that I'm trying to be, but I'll be in the group if you need me between now and then. Okay. Got a hand up. You got a hand up? Oh. Okay. I think you're all okay. It's unnerving me now. Right. Okay. Everybody seems okay. No more questions coming through. I hope that was useful. I hope it wasn't too much all at once, but I hope the fact that there is a document there to methodically go through it, and you know, obviously, I'm not going anywhere. It's going to be, we're going to be able to sort of dig into areas more deeply as you go through. Okay, so I shall bid you good night, everybody. Thanks for joining me, and I will. I'll see you back in the group. I wonder when I get a comment. When I get a comment inside the actual group, you just kind of wonder what's happened. Let me just hold on there in case it's something. Oh, I have got some questions here actually. So if anybody's still there, I will answer them, but I can always just chop this off the end. Oh, good. I'm glad. That's good. I get some positive feedback because I'm just the same as everybody else. I'm like, oh my God, what if that was shit? Jackie's asking, would you start sharing your basic little DIY projects? They're not particularly professional. That's a very interesting question, actually. Interesting question. I suppose you haven't gone through the branding process yet, though, so that might be just a good way of starting to put things out on your feed. But maybe you can photograph things in such a way that it's sort of interesting. You know, it doesn't have to be a traditional staged photo shot. It might be that you're just saying, you know, you're showing people how you're exploring things and sort of bringing it to life in a slightly different way. Maybe we can have a little look at that and see if there's something we can pull out of it that, you know, makes an interesting post. But I would start to be out there sooner rather than later. Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, that's the thing, actually. Probably doing a webinar at the end is I don't actually say to you all properly to have a wonderful Christmas as much as you can. Enjoy the rest and time with family if you're getting it. But yeah, take this downtime and start to and have a break from it all and come back refreshed and ready to attack it. That's what I should be saying at the end of the thing, shouldn't I? I will get better at this. That's good. I'm glad it's been inspiring. Yeah, good. I'll be ready to go at it in the new year. Karen, you're asking about the Etsy policies, so I'll have a little look into that for you and just check, because I know that yeah, I'm not 100% sure where I'm up to with that, because I've never had anything returned, so I'll just check for that for you. I think that's it. Okay, I'm going to click off now, but do feel free if you want to ask any other questions under the Facebook thing, and I'll come back to you on that, Karen. I'm not quite sure. All right, so I will speak to you soon. See you later.